Okay. Hello.
Warming up.
Ew.
Intro spiel, intro spiel. If you are watching this is a recorded live stream. Most likely you're watching it and the stream is over. If that's the case, feel free to jump forward to the start of the show. If you're watching right now and it's the actual stream going on, know that we'll take a few minutes to prep and get our people and viewers watching. So please wait for the start of the show and enjoy watching us ramble.
Yeah, it's a live stream, so we gotta get people on board, and it's as much as we could just record, which we have on occasion. um, but it's more fun with people. So yeah, please, if you're already watching as the stream goes on, please leave a comment so we know you're there, or at the very least, like and share this video so that we can get more people to talk about today's board game. I was wondering, were you able to dig out the promo character?
Yes.
Okay, the only one who fits today's this week's theme.
Well, there's two of them.
Oh, really? There's a second one. I don't remember the second one. But yes, that is what we are doing.
But my notes is already reacting. Okay, video is running.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep today's episode tight because I got a report to finish. It's a condensed work week for us, not necessarily for everyone, but at least for us. Well, for me, it is, which just makes everything more fun. Uh, yeah, we're just sorry, we're in the process of we're sharing stuff.
There, found the episode.
You don't necessarily hear us saying a lot, but we're trying to buy time as we get through this. We appreciate your patience.
Okay, you shared it in our group.
I'm making sure the YouTube one is public with the right settings. And then sharing. Huza. And I see Tobias reshared it with our sort of chat room mailing list. If you want to be informed when Baduy Pride goes live, you can try to reach out to us on Facebook, and we can add you to a Facebook Messenger group where we share the week's episodes, links to the live streams, all that good stuff.
Likewise, if you are someone who's been watching this channel for the OBAR videos, yes, we do board games and geeky stuff every now and then.
Yeah, we're twice a week now, but then we've also been trying to go to Obar once a week. I am still working through the videos I took during the anniversary event. Naturally, there were many of them. So for those who are stay tuned for that, I have gotten everything up until the end of the first set. So there's a second set of videos, not as many as the first, but still some good stuff, including I know the one that Elver was looking for.
Yeah.
That I've yet to upload. And then I've yet to even promote them on my socials because I wait for the whole set to be uploaded, tagged, and all that good stuff. But I appreciate the people who have watched the ones that are already up because I'm looking at about an average of 50 views for many of them. So that's very cool. Thank you, thank you. Um, and there's one with Jiggly Caliente, if people are wondering. Actually, there are two with Jiggly Caliente. Ah, it's Alfred. Hey, Alfred. Thanks for joining. And we clearly have a Dead of Winter fan, although I've never abbreviated it as DAO, which feels too much like the stock market. Are you okay with your shares or anything else you want to highlight?
I think I'm
Okay. Oh, I was wondering, also should we highlight? Uh, Crossroads games.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I will do a quick board game geek and then Crossroads.
But there's two of them.
Yeah, Gen 7 is the other one. Okay, let's load up that just in the background, just in case.
Oh, there's more. Forgotten Waters is one too.
And is it Crossroads? It's just made by the designer, but is it a Crossroads game? Ah, you look for
Crossroad
Crossroads
Games.
game as a
Yeah,
series. Oh,
and Rapson is one too.
oh, can take a look. Happy
Or
holidays, Alfred. Thank you very much for your greeting. On a side note, hey Alfred, I'm on a Fitbit Charge 5 now. I've upgraded. Just letting you
yeah,
know out of
Forgotten
sheer
Waters is a
coincidence.
Crossroads game set in the world of fantastic pirate adventure.
Wow, when was it released?
This
Scroll up. 2020. Ah,
mhm,
because Gen 7 was 2018. And
mhm.
then what's the other one? Raxon?
Yeah,
Hey
Rapson I think
Mitch.
is related to
Ah, it's a fictional organization in the same the
set in the Dead of Winter universe.
okay. All right. We'll get started. So
Let's get started.
let me hide things. So I'm gonna run the opening credits and then we'll get the actual discussion started. Thank you very much for your patience. Here we go. Yay.
Oh yeah! Baduy Pride!
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. Today we're talking about Dead of Winter. Why, you might ask? Because of these characters. And you can't see them from afar.
So we were trying to think of, oh my god, it's Christmas week. We need something with Christmas, and we do not own any of the more
Christmassy
well-known,
games.
very Christmas games. Like I know there's the one with the letters that
So there's
form
Letters
whatever.
to Santa,
Yeah, Letters
there's
to
12
Santa.
Days.
None of these are in our
There's
collection.
even the winter edition of Carcassonne.
Oh, that's true. It's
which
like
I only
snow.
own digitally.
Yes.
But
So,
since we don't own any of them,
this is as
Sarah.
close as we got because it's a game that number one involves snow and winter, and number two there are Santa-related characters. They're just not great. You
Mhm.
know, they don't exactly
The plums.
inspire people.
But yes, the game is Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. Dead of Winter is officially. I lost my page.
Was designed by Jonathan Gilmour and Isaac Vega,
Mhm.
as published by Plaid Hat Games, and it supports 2 to 5 players. It is largely cooperative with a potential competitive angle because, of course, it does.
Mhm. Released back in 2014.
So long ago.
You play survivors who are struggling to survive by hitting and accomplishing certain tasks as a group. However, there may be a traitor, a betrayer, to be more specific, in the
Yeah,
group,
if we go with this terminology.
and that betrayer might undermine the efforts of the group. Even without a betrayer, however, the game gets tricky because everyone has secret goals of their own, which nicely makes it a compelling game where you can't trust each other, but you do want to work together until you don't.
Dead of Winter is one of the few zombie games that have survived in our game collection. We've already talked about the joys of Last Night on Earth, which
Mhm.
has a different kind of, dice rolling fun thing to it. Dead of Winter is a lot more strategic, but I think what really shines about it is how heavily narrative it is. And
Mhm.
that's because it is one of the first, if not the first, in Plaid Hat Games Crossroads series of
Mhm.
games. What's a Crossroads game, Toby?
In Crossroad games, there are instances wherein things may happen depending on the character or characters
Mm.
you may have control over. Because unlike most role playing games, most board games, in Dead of Winter, you can actually control and you will actually control more than just one character.
Mm-hmm.
You decide on the movements and decisions on different characters under your control during your turn. But those might be the very thing that triggers a crossroad event, which the player,
To your right,
yeah, to your right, so that was the player
before
before
you.
you, looks at. They basically reference a card, and while you go through your turn, they'll be checking the card. The card might sometimes say, "Do you have Mr. Plum?" Or it might say, "Did the player move to a location?" Or it might say, "Is the player currently at this location?" And if those conditions are fulfilled, you call out, "Wait!" and resolve the card, which opens different story events, which may or may not be good things, but are always fun.
So more on the Crossroads stuff later on. I think we
Mhm.
need to now take a few steps back and talk about how the game plays.
Yes.
Infinite Lee on YouTube is asking where do we play and can he join our play group? We play at home mostly because if you can see, we have a bit of a problem. So yeah, so we largely play at home.
We're not the cafe type.
We're not the cafe type,
And
and
when we
we're
do,
not going to put up a cafe. People have suggested.
and we when we have visited some cafes, we struggle to feel calm seeing how other people touch games that they don't know.
We have taught other people to play games at the cafe to help things along.
Please fix that.
Yeah, it's like
Please don't
ooh,
pull that.
missing component, missing rule book. So that's okay. But yeah, so but of course the pandemic has made it a lot more difficult. Oh, could you turn the camera a little to me? A little. Ooh, okay, there. All right, cool.
Dead of
So
Winter does
Dead of
not
Winter,
have a digital version as far as what I know officially,
which makes
but
sense.
there might be options to play it online in other areas. We will let you stay creative on that. But the game itself uses action points, area movement, dice rolling, hand management, narrative choices, push your luck systems. It's a semi cooperative game that includes storytelling, trading to some level, a traitor mechanic.
I've never seen a trade happen.
Well, that's the style. Like, do you need healing? I'll go to you. Can you be the one to make sure you put the food there?
I've rarely seen
Yeah,
trade.
yeah. Variable player powers, and last but not the least, voting.
Yeah. Hey, we got a kick out of reading the game mechanics as listed on Board Game Geek. It is a great resource, and it's just fun trying to distill a game into those core components.
So let's take a peek at what's in the box and break down the gameplay.
And we're looking at the base game first. Yes,
Yeah.
obviously there is an expansion under it. We'll talk about that later. Bum, 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 bum. Oh yeah, this game has great box fart. It's like very snug. And then the quality of the box is very nice, very shiny, hot press, that hot stamp,
I
whatever.
realized now we should have something like we could hang the box or something. So it's like on display while we're doing it.
Okay, all right. Things to consider for future improvement. Right now, you have moved. The light is becoming visible. All right.
You
Real
have the
book.
manual.
Yay.
You have player reference boards. There are multiple boards for each player. They declare your different round summary actions as well as the player turn actions, which are two different things. So
Which
let
is
me hold
actually
one.
super because it's both a guide, but it's also functional. There are little
Yeah.
boxes that do certain things, or
We-
at least you use it for certain purposes.
We have multiple areas that are then used to reference the different locations on the board. Locations include the hospital, the police station, the school, the library, the gas station, and the grocery store. Locations are broken down to specific areas. You have an area for the deck of cards of that location. You have an area for noise markers.
Noise.
Because noise is a it's funny. It's not listed in the list that there should be risk
There's push your
risk
luck.
taking. Yeah, push your luck. I guess the closest thing to that.
Mm-mm.
There's the spots for the zombies. How many of them can fill up an area?
And it varies per
And there's
location.
the spots for the players, how many survivors can be present as well. And then lastly, on the top, you have little icons that help you figure out what likely you can find in those locations. Beyond the player boards and that, you have the actual board.
Which represents sort of your headquarters. So the board itself looks small, but then when you combine it with the others, okay, already gotta warn you, this game takes a lot up of table real estate.
Mm-mm.
So be creative because it's like setting up the player board, the main board, the location boards, and then each player has this little board. Plus, they're gonna have character cards,
Mm-mm.
so that's a lot of space.
The nice thing though about how they set up the game is that they try to make sure the spaces for the components are already part of the design.
Yes.
So here you have the space for the contributions to the activities, the waste pile, the main objective card is displayed here, crisis cards are placed here.
Zombie spots.
You have the counter that shows the rounds.
Yes.
You have the zombie locations. You have the location for all the other followers, especially those useless ones that just keep eating your food. And
You have morale.
and lastly, you have your food supply.
That food supply is very small, and it reflects just really how much food you really have.
Then the game gets really crazy because you have standees. Oh, it's lower than expected. You have standees that are
You got
representing
zombies. You're
your
trying to reach into
zombies.
frame. Okay.
There.
Okay.
So you have lots of zombies, lots of zombies, lots of zombies. Because you need to have lots of zombies in a game that has zombies showing up almost every turn.
Oh, it's not even almost. There's zombies every turn.
And then you have the survivors. They are unique standees for. Oh, they're not in frame. There are unique standees for each of the possible survivors in the game. Each of them have a corresponding character card, which brings us back to why this is the episode of our show.
The first challenge, the first true challenge of this game is matching your character card with your standee. Because there are sometimes they're not quite in the same position as the character photo. Oh, that should have been a great cover.
Mhm. So you have the plums, one being part of the base game, that's Robert Plum, and then one of the expansions we got, which is Roberta Plum.
Totally interesting,
Yeah,
unique
let's do that pose again for the
with your
thumbnail.
zombies. Yeah. Arr, arr, arr. I'm a pirate. Okay, all right. Wrong niche group. All right.
We cannot forget there's a dog. Yes, the game has a dog.
With a cape, mind you. Oh, he's still not visible. Is he? Oh, there. He's a dog with a cape because he's a superhero dog.
Now, beyond the standees, we have lots of cards. We have the character cards, comes in its own bag. We have the different cards for every location, because they represent the different items you can find in those locations. You have the Exiled Cards, which comes into play once a person is revealed as the betrayer.
No, or is voted
I was
out.
voted out.
Not necessarily if they were the betrayer. They just got ousted by the colony.
You have the Crossroad cards, which is all those situational events that have an if then else statement. You have the crises cards, which represent goals that you as a team have the round to resolve. And if it's not resolved, bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to spend more than necessary in hopes of getting even better results, but that rarely happens in a group. You have the. Oh, this is the expansion.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have the main scenario and mission cards, which represent different story arcs. The manual actually allows you to build an ongoing narrative
There's a campaign mode of sorts.
by going through the cards in a sequence, but at the same time, you're not restricted to that. You can
Yeah.
simply choose to play their
the
situations
sort
you want.
of preset scenarios the manual provides. Each works on its own, and they give it a difficulty rating, so you know how you can mix and match based on your player's experience.
And then you have dice.
Because it's one of those
You
games.
have lots of dice.
Just standard d6s. Oh, but there's also the exposure dice.
And then you have tokens. And among the bag of tokens, we have the unique. This is a 12-sided die.
It's a d12.
Yeah, the unique D12, which is used as the exposure die, which has frostbite and a blood drop as icons in certain faces.
And skulls.
These represent when you expose yourself to danger, you get bitten by the zombies, or you take injuries from the cold.
Either way, it's not great. Most of them are blank, though, thankfully. All right.
Tokens come in many forms, everything from sound meters to frostbite meters to wound tokens
Barricades.
to barricade tokens and your first player token.
Because of course it's a knife. All right. So I'm gonna run through the. So there is a sort of round phase that everybody goes through. But then there's also expanded player actions as Toby kind of tidies up the figures. So every round, the player's turn phase is goes through number one, reveal a crisis card that'll affect them for the entire round. Then everybody rolls dice equal to the number of characters they control as modified by any other
Mm-hmm.
items they may have. And then each player takes their turn. Let's talk about the player turns. So some player turns require dice, some do not.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that require dice include attacking, whether it is a zombie or another survivor,
Yes.
and the dice value you need is based on your character card. There will be a rating that you must meet or exceed. Um,
It's
damn
not visible.
Santa. Yeah, but there two and five. So his attack rating is 2, so he attacks very easily. So as long as you have a die that has 2 or higher, then he can
Mm.
attack. There
Search.
is search,
Mhm.
which also depends on the card, so they will have a search reading. You can build a barricade. This doesn't need a specific die value. You just need to spend a die, quote unquote.
Mhm.
You can clean waste, which is taking 3 cards from the trash and removing it from the game.
Mhm.
And there is attract, which is you can pull 2 zombies to your location because you start making noise and hey, hey,
Mhm.
over here, which sounds weird, but it comes into play later on. And then there are actions that do not require active dice to play, which is playing a card, adding a card to the crisis, moving a survivor around, spending food tokens, requesting for help, handing off items, and voting to exile.
Mhm.
So, very briefly, is that when we say by assigning dice, so you will have after everybody at the beginning of the round, everybody rolls their dice. Then you put them on this little box that clearly says unused dice.
Mhm.
And as you spend them, you move them from this side of your player board to this side to show that you've used them. And those are sort of your action points. But in between, you can spend again. You can take as many actions as you want that don't require dice to balance things off.
Mhm.
So your players are largely going to be moving around, trying to search locations to find items to make themselves better or
Or to
to
hit.
fulfill a quest,
Yes.
a crisis. Um, and then there's sort of that end game thing that everybody has
Mhm.
to achieve.
Now, keep in mind, in as much as there's the crisis you have to fulfill, there's also the food requirement that cannot be ignored
Yes.
because this is a survival game after all.
I like that food is tied to the number of people at home
Mhm.
and not necessarily the number of people
In the
in
game.
the game. So one of the and we'll jump to there are more strategies later, but one of the weird strategies to remember that because you can move players out so that they don't need to be fed, they just get attacked by zombies.
Mhm.
So pick and choose.
It's also interesting how this game does have a waste system. Waste happens whenever you use cards in order to do certain effects. Maybe you'll use this card to generate fuel. Maybe you'll use this card to instantly kill certain zombies in the
Or
nearby
gain
area.
certain effects.
But then they fall into the waste pile, which just represents in a survival setting, someone has to be keeping the place clean, someone has to be helping keep things properly
It's a weird
ordered.
angle to things.
And this overall affects morale, which again is a brilliant little mechanic that makes this feel more than just a board game.
And it's like I think if you hit 10 or more waste, then things go bad. So
Mhm.
like we're constant. You're totally allowed to check the waste pile when you need to and count through. Okay. And then after all the players have taken their turns during the player phase, we go to the colony phase. So first you pay the needed amount of food
Mhm.
based on the number of people in the base.
Yes.
Basically, it's 2:1. 2 people, 1 food token.
Yes.
You check waste. So you check if there are more than 10 cards in the waste pile and
Mhm.
adjust morale accordingly. You resolve the crisis, and we'll talk about more in a bit. You check the main objective because you'll have like an overall scenario you're trying to do, and did you hit that? You move the round tracker if you did not, so
Mhm.
another round goes down. And then you pass the first player token to the next player in sequence towards the left or clockwise. Um, yeah. So the main objective is really mapped out by the scenario, and typically it'll mean like setting aside a certain amount of food or a certain amount
Mhm.
of items. It really depends on the scenario. But then every round, like we said, there's a crisis card, which if unresolved will have consequences at the end of the round.
Mhm.
And this is tricky because you'll all throughout for the crisis. um, these cards are played face down, very similar to betrayal games like Shadows over Camelot, where you're all working together to help certain quests. You just can't show everybody what your cards are because we just gotta trust you that you're not a betrayer.
So it might be a scene wherein illness is spreading in the camp. So we need to collect medicine equal to the number of players. And that means 4 medicine cards. As you go through your turns, that's the only time you're allowed to add to the pile. So let's say on my turn as the first player, I might go, okay, I'm putting medicine. I'll put the cards face down. The other players might not realize that I'm actually the one who'll be the traitor later on. So I actually put down trash or I put down other cards. So by the time the end of the turn is reached and everyone has contributed at some point in time, the cards are shuffled. We reveal there's 3 medicine and 2 guns. Wait, who didn't give medicine? And the game gets brilliant.
That's where the arguments begin. And in addition to just whether or not you are the betrayer, your character card, your player card reminds you that this is where you put your secret objective.
Mhm.
And your secret objective, apart from possibly revealing you are the betrayer, may not necessarily mean you just have a personal agenda. So you can be working towards the goals of the group, but you may need something on your own so that you are the winner.
Yeah.
So for example, like in that earlier scenario, maybe Toby did not put medicine because he's hoarding medicine because that's part of his secret
Mm.
objective. But he still wants to show he's playing a card so that he's a team player.
It sort of nicely connects with zombie stories wherein maybe that survivor's hoarding all the medicine because they have a sick kid. Or maybe because they suffer from asthma and they're like, I need it for myself. I'm not going to give it to the camp. So it's all these brilliant stories built into the mechanics.
Yeah, because by the end of the game, you're going to have to compare one, did you resolve the main objective? If you resolve the main objective, then we start checking every player. Did you resolve your secret objectives?
Mm.
And the players who resolve their secret objectives are the ones who are going to win. If nobody resolved their secret objective, but the main objective was achieved, everybody wins.
Yes.
But if one of you is a betrayer, you got a hard road ahead of you.
So while groups might be content to just survive the game, we all know everyone wants to be the winner instead.
It's like playing Legendary Encounters Alien, and as much as the advanced game, the basic game is fun on its own, the advanced game that lets you kill each other and turn into aliens is really more fun.
Or like Legendary itself, wherein, yes, you defeat the big bad, but we
Oh.
still check who has the most hero points.
Yes, who still beat the most bad guys and rescued the most bystanders. So that's why it's still a semi-cooperative game with a nice little leg up to push you forward.
Now, given all the crises, the secret goals, or secret objectives, and the food supply needs,
And the main objective.
that's where all the locations now become very important. Every location has its own stack of cards to dig through. By going through a location, you can take the action to search. Searching basically has you draw a card.
Yes.
If you choose to search more, you can do this at the risk of noise tokens. Noise tokens accumulate in a location, allowing you to search extra cards, but you still only keep one,
Yes.
unless your card says otherwise.
Or your character has a special power, or you have an item that allows you to keep more cards.
Noise tokens, however, become important because during the colony phase, after the crisis is checked, that's when zombies are added to the board. And zombies are added to every location where survivors are present.
The minimum is one zombie means one survivor.
Mhm.
But then it gets worse with if there's noise, then you roll
A die.
per noise token
To
to
see
see if a zombie
trap
shows up.
marks.
Yeah.
And if ever a location is overrun by the number of zombies present,
All
then,
the zombie slots are full.
then the character with the lowest number in the corner, and you'll notice that each character has a number there, it's not that visible. In this case, it's 14 and 15. The one with the lowest number becomes the sacrificed character because they were not popular enough or they were not skillful enough to avoid death from the overrunning zombies.
Yeah, so that number in the corner is generally like sort of how popular or how like charismatic these people are at times. It's not super set in
So
stone.
it sort of implies in a group, worst comes to shove, push comes to shove, someone has to die. The most unpopular one is thrown into the fray.
Then to settle the argument, Mr. Claus is less popular than Mrs. Claus. Well, I mean Plum, but It just makes sense. Drunk Santa. Nobody likes Drunk Santa. Okay.
Regardless, however, death will always mean a drop in the morale.
Yes. Whether it is, even if it's a betrayer, death is bad.
And a drop in the morale means a possibility of losing the game despite hitting the objectives if your morale drops to 0.
Hmm. So, um, that's largely the game. What do you like most about Dead of Winter?
Um, so I like the stories that it builds up. There are times that we find ourselves digging for followers
Yes.
because we need to hit a goal or because we're hoping to at least um, be able to find more people we could work with.
Or Cannon
And then
Fodder.
there's that anger of getting the useless followers.
Yeah, there are these like generic silhouette tokens. They are not player characters, but they go to your base and
They
they count towards your food
Yeah,
requirement.
so they're literally just people who can't help and you have to feed them. And it's so annoying because they don't have morale ratings, meaning you never get to sacrifice
Yeah,
them.
they just stay. They just hang around.
But at the same time, it's thematically so well done.
They are the people in the background of The Walking Dead.
I'm also I also like hate. Like because it's a great design, hate because it's a terrifying design. The fact that anytime you move between locations, you have to roll the exposure die.
Yes.
That represents either being caught in the cold, being attacked by a zombie, and it's a brilliant little piece of mechanic
Alfred's like human shields.
that makes
Yeah.
movement so terrifying.
Yeah, so there it is not uncommon for in the first round of the game as people leave the camp to explore that someone gets frostbite or someone gets bitten by a zombie
Mm.
and then they're like on borrowed time unless you have a way to heal them, which means spending more items that are needed for the
Mm.
crisis. So it's a good puzzle.
Now you don't start the game completely helpless. You do start with a starting hand of cards based from a basic set of cards. These can range from medicine to fuel and the like.
Tools.
However, these cards cannot be used for the main objective.
Yeah, that's annoying.
They can be spent for crises. But if, let's say, your main objective or your secret objective requires, let's say, food, and your basic card is food, you can't keep that for the end of the game. You still
Yeah.
have to find different foods.
Spend that crap. Yeah. Admittedly, I still get a kick out of the Crossroads system. The Crossroads system is super random and is very hit or miss because some of the conditions are super narrow.
Mhm.
It is literally like if this particular character and this particular character are together in a location, the
This
crossroad
triggers.
triggers. If it never happens, it's never gonna happen. Whereas some crossroad triggers are like inevitable. For example, a player moves. As long as a player tries to move location, crossroad, and then you trigger. But it
Now,
has that fun like kind of gotcha
now
moment.
the beauty of the crossroads system is the fact that you don't have to say if it's triggered until the turn ends.
Oh yes,
And that's a beautiful way to have the tension build. So if it was like my turn and then Rocky gets the card and it's like, okay, take your actions. And then you're like, so yeah, I'll move Santa. Then I look at Rocky and Rocky's like, okay, keep going. And it's brilliant because, you know,
you end up second guessing everything you're
you're
gonna do.
moving wooden cardboard tokens on a cardboard location. You're rolling dice to attack. You're confident. You have guns. You have equipment. But that mechanic of someone looking at cards and wondering if you'll trigger it, priceless. It's amazing how it works so well. It makes every moment terrifying.
Yeah, so I just like the addition of that one little system. They found a way to bring in tension into a zombie game because a lot of times zombie games just feel like action games. Like you basically kill all the zombies. I mean, and I love that about Last Night on Earth. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but this keeps this game a bit more distinct. And then the the nature of how zombies spawn, how zombies attack, and all these things, very systematic. I still like this a lot more than things like Zombicide, where you always end up on that when it's the zombie turn. If they hit you, there's nothing you can do. This one, you end up really running the numbers for like, okay, uh, there's one more zombie spot in my location.
Mm.
If I go here, if and there are two players, if we both stay here, two zombies are going to show up. and that's going to be bad because we're going to overrun.
But then if you know he's the lower morale number,
He's going to die.
then
It's
you
not
might
me.
as well do it because you know you're gonna be fine.
Or you end up discussing like we just need to kill one of these zombies and we're not going to get overrun. So that's not so bad.
Mhm.
Or one of us can leave.
Or one of us can build a barricade.
Oh, because the
So,
barricade gets destroyed first and
before a
then the
zombie's
zombie
placed in.
appears. So there's a lot of like I like that aspect of how figuring out what to do with your zombies. Hence zombie math. Like, I have more slots here. I can attract two zombies from the HQ because they spawn in a particular sequence
Now,
and free up spaces.
while that might sound like so the mood's lost because everything's so mechanical. Surprisingly, not,
no.
because it sort of acts like you're planning with people on how you'll traverse this dangerous location. Yes, you're using game terminology. It's not thematic, but it doesn't have to be because the crossroads system itself provides the tension. The dice rolls of just moving and you roll that 12-sided die and no, I'm safe, or that annoyance of, oh no, I'm frostbite, I need medicine, who can go to me, what's medicine, and it's freakishly successful. Then add to that you could spend food tokens to boost your dice roll. Such a devil's bargain sort of tool. We're in.
Mm.
I need a bump up of one. I have food, but we needed it for the. I'm spending the food. Kayo na bahala dyan. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
And then as much as you can be worried about what, then you're just totally gonna game it. The secret objective part and the potential for a betrayer makes every player turn stressful.
Mm.
So at the beginning of the round, you know there's a crisis. You have a quick discussion. How do we beat the crisis? Do we have the cards we need? If not, we have to search for those particular cards. And then as you go from player to player and you watch how many cards have been added to the crisis, or that zombie math example I stated where one player is like, okay, we have two slots. I'm out of actions, but if you do this, we will be fine. And then that next player comes along and does not do anything. Then it's like, is he just being stupid or is he trying to get me killed? So I love that progression as the game goes around. You go from you can have a big plan at the beginning of every round, and then as you watch and like they're not doing
And
the
sometimes
plan.
it might be, I forgot. I was supposed to put food, right?
Ugh.
And then everyone's like, did you really?
Did you really
Did you
forget?
really forget?
Did you really forget? So yeah, that's I think that's what makes Dead of Winter super fun.
Alfred shares he super loves the dog.
Many
Very
people love the
useful.
dog.
Yes.
He's like I said, he's a superhero.
And that's part of the other draws of the game. You want certain characters. So sometimes you're digging, hoping to find them. And you'll be, I don't like this one, but
Like
you have
that,
no choice.
there's that annoyingly cool guy with a leather jacket, and like I hate him. But then he's like has useful abilities.
Or there's that Asian guy who has ninja abilities. So he's very good at killing off the zombies. There was the one who worked in the library, I think. So draws two cards instead of just one.
but at the school,
Yeah.
yeah. Or there's
So-
like the principal
So you
or something
have
similar.
you have that beautiful effect as well of specific characters being very awesome in specific places, and you end up wanting to bring them there, which makes it again feel so thematic. You draw the cop. Of course, the cop will want to go to the police
Station
station.
because he's trying to get more guns. And then I don't know. There's like stupid things that always stand out for me with this game because especially in the towards the last round, if you've already met the main objective, so you know it's the last round of the game.
Mm.
I feel like that's when players do the weirdest things. As much as you had this game plan of okay to survive this round without injury, we need to do this, this, and this. We whether or not you decide to pursue the crisis or not, and then because everybody knows it's the last round, then you start people going like,
It's okay, we'll starve.
yeah, or I'm going to go home. And like, why are you going home? You're gonna increase our food requirement. It's okay, I just want to go home. But like, why are you going home?
Or suddenly, you have a character there, and then okay, I'll go here, and then I'm attacking you.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, I need it. Okay, you're dead, so I get this. Okay, I'm good.
Because once people are trying to resolve that secret objective, I think all the claws really come out. And that last round is when a lot of people do. I mean, because there are some secret objectives that require you to kill other characters, especially if it's a betrayer type character. You will see that rush at the end, and that is
Alfred
priceless.
Alfred shares the ninja is a good character for the most difficult setting.
To be fair, it can be argued that most characters have value at some point or another. It's a question of combination. I know there was one time I think I had like four player characters under me because I was trying to hit something and I just kept getting characters and it was just crazy. Uh, so yeah.
Now let's talk about Exiles.
So exiles, okay, in my experience, doesn't happen super a lot.
Mhm.
Normally, a player has to be acting very suspiciously to trigger an exile vote.
So once during each player's turn, a player may choose another player and initiate a vote to exile that player. Initiating the vote forces all players to simultaneously cast the vote of thumbs up or thumbs down to determine whether or not the chosen player is exiled. A player cannot initiate a vote to exile themselves, and remember all ties are broken by the first player. This includes votes to exile. Once a person is successfully voted for exile, they then reveal um, where's that? They then immediately draw an exiled secret objective card. This one adjusts their secret objective and must move all their survivors into a non-colony area. You could basically think if I had four characters and I got exiled, all four leave the colony because they're no longer allowed to stay there.
Her.
The exiled player can no longer add cards to a crisis. Um, Whenever an exiled player is directed to add helpless tokens to the colony, those tokens are not added. An exiled player can play a survivor item card to add to a survivor in the game is placed at a non-colony location rather than at the colony. Exiled players cannot spend food tokens to increase their action die results,
They don't
but
have
may
access.
play food cards to increase action die results by one because they don't have access to the tokens.
Yeah, they lose the
The
colony
tokens
access.
are only in the colony, and the food cards are better spent for those tokens. Exiled players cannot vote. The colony does not lose morale when a survivor from an exiled player is killed, and the exiled player plays a card. Instead of placing it in the waste pile, it's removed from the game.
So it's like an interesting mechanic. So whether or not you're the betrayer, if you're voted to be exiled, your objective just changes,
Mhm.
and then you must survive on your own, and it becomes very rough. I think we have only managed to reach a point of exile once, but he already had a sniper rifle,
Yeah,
so that did not go
it
well.
was just killing us all.
He just killed us. So good job for him. Yeah, so that's your main game of Dead of Winter. Mitch was asking to compare it to other zombie games thus far. So again, I think its strengths, it's very strategic, it's nicely narrative. There are just so many layers of systems of intrigue
Hmm.
that even innocent actions like being unable to contribute to the crisis because maybe you really don't have the cards for the crisis
Hmm.
can be viewed with such suspicion. Like, why are you holding out? And I think more than any other zombie game, this really gets you in the mindset of being a survivor
Hmm.
and like dealing with scarcity and things.
I will share that Dead of Winter captures the feel of stuff like The Walking Dead.
Yes.
But Last Night on Earth captures the more classic zombie movies.
Yes.
Where it's a campy group of kids trying to run away from the zombies and survive. So, I guess you could say Dead of Winter is the best game if you want modern zombie stories. Whereas Last Night on Earth is your go to for classic horror zombie movies. Then, if you want it to feel super heroic and action packed like the Resident Evil movies of Mila Jovovich, you can play Zombicide.
And then Zombie Dice is just a zombie game that tries to pretend to be zombie-ish, so I don't know if it's strong enough thematically to be a full-on zombie experience. And then Tiny Epic Zombies is a weird addition to the Tiny Epic line. We'll talk about that in another episode.
So Dead of Winter is awesome already. The main set itself has so many scenarios, so many ways to play.
So many
Even
Crossroad cards, you just want to trigger one
yeah,
day.
and even if you play the same scenario over and over again, it still feels very different because of the mix of characters, the crossroads that trigger, and so on and so forth. The crises you face. But no, they weren't content. They released The Long Night, a standalone expansion. Yes, standalone, meaning you didn't have to buy the base set if you wanted to buy The Long Night. It introduces Roxxon locations, Roxxon being the evil corporation that is behind the zombie outbreak, where experiments spill out unless the players can contain them. There's new colony locations present, brand new challenges. There's raiding parties that attack you from other colonies. There's mysteries to uncover. There's upgrades for your colony. All in all, it sounds like an awesome thing, which we haven't tried playing.
Yeah, I mean, like the challenge of the standalone. No, actually, I think we've played it at least.
Have we?
We played it once.
We did?
We have one track play on
Okay.
Board Game Geek.
Okay, I don't
Um,
remember.
And it was like a very the Roxanne location thing was like quirky and all that. I remember that. And look, I see they're punched out.
Yeah, you're right.
But we've only punched out the characters we've played with.
So as you can see, it has its host of characters to come. It has its zombies to be punched out. But it also has the faceless goons that represent the other colony members or Roxanne.
Gazillion tokens.
You have all these tokens out there. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't played this.
But you also have different zombies as inspired by the Left 4 Dead series of bursters, stalkers, witches, and the like. You have your standard locations, gas, hospital,
School.
library, but then you have Roxanne as well. Notice they're cardboard now.
Yeah, they went for thicker boards instead of the flimsy ones.
You have your colony board just as before. But then you have new ones such as the bandit hideouts, the graveyards, and the like. Beyond that, you have your typical set of everything, including secret cards, which can determine if you are your secret objectives. You have your dice, your standees, your location cards, and so on and so forth.
So, admittedly, I was a little disappointed that they went with a standalone expansion, because the step up between Dead of Winter to Dead of Winter: The Long Night, then it feels like just get the Long Night. Like if you don't own either game,
Yeah.
you're kind of safer getting the Long Night because you still have the fundamentals of Dead of Winter, and then you have
All the
extra
new
stuff
mechanics.
that the rule book maps out, like how to add individual elements only. So you're not obligated to play with everything all the time, which is good variability, but kind of bad expansion planning. So that's a quirky part about the Long Night. It To be fair, we do have games like Last Night on Earth that went through a similar track. Once we got to Timber Peak, it was a standalone expansion that kind of rebooted things and added new mechanics. And in our later years, we played more Timber Peak than we played the base
Mhm.
Last Night on Earth because it had the more fun system,
But
the
that
fire
was
rules and the
the
like.
frustration of any standalone expansion. Marketing wise, it sounds great because that means new players don't have to buy the old stuff to enjoy it. But for people who bought the old stuff, you feel kind of shafted.
Yeah, then it's hard to like balance like the difference between the
It
two.
sort of feels like you're buying an expansion at the price of a full game.
Yeah. So to be in other like because I always say to be fair in these things, there was an effort to justify the expansion and the standalone expansion with their third expansion, which we do not own, which is Dead of Winter: Warring Colonies, which allows players to set up rival colonies that will fight one another, and suddenly it justifies why you own two different colony boards with two different sets of colony cards. I
But at the
don't
s-
know the full rules.
But at the same time, Warring Colonies is its own boxed set. So it almost makes you wonder, did you just need that and one of the two? Or does it stand alone again on its own? It's listed as having a 4 to 11 player number.
Yeah, they
Why
recommend.
it's 11 and not 12 is intriguing.
It's recommended that to play either the Warring Colonies variant or the Lone Wolf module, you will need both Dead of Winter and Dead of Winter: The Long Night to play this game.
In
But
addition to
yeah, but the expansion itself will give you 15 more survivors, 50 new crossroad cards, 43 items, 11 crises cards, and they can be used with either set. So it's a weird little upgrade. I've seen the box. It is the same box size, which confuses me. Which probably needs even more table space. Oops, sorry, there's one more thing.
I just had to look at the box.
And it's just hard to say. So that's also why we don't own it yet. I think we've been waiting for it to hit bargain basement levels of sales, but turning this game into a four-player requirement and really stressing the PvP angle, admittedly, is probably not our main gameplay style.
But it might be for others.
Yeah, so not a bad thing to get into, but again, it's like that's your warning for this. In addition, this publisher, very very annoying, many promo cards. We have gotten a few like the Santa set, but they're very hard to come by. And of course, as is the nature of individual promo cards, they tend to cost the price of small box games.
And they tend to be available only if you attended conventions, unless you pay an arm and a leg for them in secondary market sales.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I get it.
includes cards on Felicia Day,
Ah, yes.
Kodiak Colby, Rich Sommer, Rodney Smith, and many other names who are probably familiar to you if you are active in the board game community, or you watch a lot of social
YouTube
media.
stuff. Yeah. So take it as you will. So I mean, from a recommendation standpoint, we kind of fall back on it is not bad to own the original Dead of Winter. If you already have Dead of Winter, I don't know if I can super justify if you should get the Long Night.
Mhm.
If you don't own either game, you're also okay with just getting the Long Night. Solid experience, but don't jump into playing with the optional components right away, like the rocks on sites and the graveyard and the like.
Now, sadly, as it is in the board game industry now, a lot of games have started to do what we call automata or solo play options,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the pandemic.
Yes.
Lots of companies have been releasing official or, in some cases, fan made rules on how to play a game alone. Wingspan has a fantastic automata system.
Mm.
Other games like Caverna, a lot of the Portal game stuff were designed with solo play options already
Or
present.
you have games like Root, which were designed with who have adopted full automata rules and turned them into actual expansions.
Dead of Winter currently, as far as we know, doesn't have solo rules, and I feel would suffer from solo rules.
Yeah.
The Crossroads system is so important to the experience, and the closest way I could imagine it working in a solo rule is you do an action, and then after you finish your turn, you look at the Crossroad card to see if it got triggered. But that still won't have the same impact of whenever you do an action, you're looking at the guy. I'll move, and then you notice his eyebrows raising. It's move related. I'll move to the gas station.
No.
Nothing. But then you realize you still have another action. Okay, my other guy. Oh no, I don't want to move anymore.
He goes home.
And that's the thing that makes it so powerful. So I don't know if a solo system would ever really work with this game.
I
and
think
capture
the
feel.
closest you could get is sort of like what Portal has done with some of their games, where if you turn the Crossroads deck into an app, where you would have to key in like my action is this, and then you might still see the trigger. It's not going to be the same. It's sort of like the Clank companion app,
Yes, I was thinking.
where
more
as you
Clank.
do things and then it triggers
So
something.
when what Clank did was there were three things that get triggered, and those three things can change depending on
Yeah, they
the
randomize every time.
the general.
The lieutenant.
So the lieutenant. So at one point it might be did you buy something, and another point might be did you spend swords or did you kill something. And then when you press that, it may or may not trigger an effect, which has that nice
It's a fair amount of tension, and then the animation gets angrier and angrier
yes,
as the turn goes on.
kind of
So
works.
that's something like that, and I think you only need to automate the Crossroads deck, and then I don't know what other bells and whistles you can add in,
Mhm.
but that's an option.
Now, for those who like the universe, there is one last expansion to consider. Well, spin-off to consider, and
Yeah,
that is the Flick 'em Up Dead of Winter game. It's a dexterity game where
Combines two different
you
games.
move different tokens around by flicking them, and you try to kill the zombies that way. Not our kind of game.
We're really not great with dexterity. Plus, it's going to uh,
So to wrap up,
spin things around.
to wrap up, pros and cons.
Um, what's this? I mean, I like the great mood, great atmosphere.
Mhm.
Like the tension is palpable. That's always fun. The random factor is very high.
Mhm.
I think that can be frustrating. The fact that every time you move, you can die. Searching, you can have a really good search ratings on your character, but not find what you need,
Mhm.
even though the location you are at clearly states the most common card in that deck is like food, and you
Mhm.
still won't find food.
Because there's still a randomness to it.
Yeah, so that can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
Depending on what's going on. So I mean, it's many will argue that randomness just makes it fair, but yeah, but it makes it very unpredictable and wild, and
Mhm.
that can be tricky. Especially I think I don't know what the ratios are on the number of those darn the useless followers and decks. It's like
Mhm.
sometimes it's kind of crazy.
But it's crazier when you get those crossroad cards wherein a girl goes to you asking for food.
Oh yeah, they're super
Do
like
you
open ended.
help her? And you're like, why is this testing me this way?
And you're not allowed to read the options depending in most cases for crossroads you just ask, well, you just ask and then you give the options but you don't state the consequences.
Yes.
So it's very tricky. I
Um,
still love that part.
I love that the game is not too complicated for new players. Um, so the game system is not too hard to grasp for new players. Noise tokens might be one of the things that is parang, what? How does that work again? But after a few examples, they grasp it faster. The crossroad cards themselves are not too hard for new players to get into in terms of figuring out how to play it for someone else. So it doesn't also hurt if the next player to the right guides the new player in resolving it. Um, I do feel, however, that those crossroad cards can be very painful to read. Man, they
Oh,
cram so much text
the
and so
font
small.
is very small.
But I understand that doing it in cards does feel like a good step away from how it used to be done in games like Arabian Nights
The
and
booklet.
Above and Below that uses a booklet. I think the card move is a brilliant feel because it's nice holding that card and looking at the people. But I just wish maybe in future editions they use tarot card sized cards instead. So there's
Or
more
they
more
temper
room.
some of the narrative because admittedly there's a lot of fluff that which is good for atmosphere, good for narrative mood, but sometimes maybe a little less is more or something. So you could go
Yes.
either way to increase the font size. And then at the same time, the crossroads system can be its own folly at times
Mhm.
because either one, the event feels super wild. Like there are many crossroads cards where both options are bad,
Mhm.
and then there's like no choice and it's just bad and worse. Or there are random cases where an entire round can go by and no crossroads trigger
Yeah.
because it's super random. It's based on character names. It's not always based on character actions, and that kind of hurts the game sometimes because you're so hyped up, you want something to happen on the crossroad side, and then nothing. So
Mhm.
you're just playing and you kind of go along. So pros and cons.
Yeah. In the end, we still highly recommend it. We did buy 2 boxes. We were tempted to get Gen 7. It's just so expensive.
Oh, it's
Um,
another
so
crossroads
we
game.
didn't get it, but it has a great concept. You are people with powers and you're escaping from a corporation.
And you're in space.
Yeah,
And
so
then it's implied you're like clones. Hence, it's
so
like Generation
it
7.
seems a very interesting idea. Forgotten Waters. Now I'm tempted. Forbidden Waters. I'm not tempted to look it up because it's pirates. And pirates is
Pirates!
always fun. And in many ways, that's what we love about Seafall. As much as it's universally panned for the wrong reasons, we love how Seafall offers these moments of choice. So
Yes.
to have a game that's got so much of that, I'm in. I want to look that up.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that's. Hey, so happy holidays. That's our this is the only game we have that includes someone dressed up as Santa Claus, so it totally fits this week.
Actually, I think we have one more, but
Which one?
um, I think Legacy had someone who was like very Santa-ish.
Duke the Crazy?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think you just think he's fat with a beard. Okay, that's totally different.
But
All
I
right.
guess that's our episode for tonight. Thank you for watching, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
For questions or suggestions for just for future episodes, you can fill out the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG
You
Suniko.
can also check out our blog, baduypray.com, for the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So feel free to continue the conversation below. Let us know what your favorite Crossroads moments were in your Dead of Winter games, or argue with us for what zombie game is better than this. We'd be interested to hear what you have to say, and be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky,
And I'm Toby.
and this is
Baduy
Baduy
Pride.
Pride. Good night, everyone.